Hello and welcome to our webinar on reaching customers through Facebook Ads Manager. Ads Manager is a very useful tool that's been built by Facebook that, when you use it correctly, can help you reach your customers in a very effective and very cheap way. I'm going to be explaining how to better use it today so that you have a much better understanding. We're going to be talking about how to set up your budget, targeting the right people, because you want to make sure that when you send an ad, it goes to the right customer. We're going to go through how to create conversions. It's not enough just to reach the customer. You need to get the leads out of it. You need to get the purchases. We're going to look at how you design your advertising and understanding your insights, all that little bit of data that Facebook gives you so you can fine tune your campaigns into the future. And we're going to do that over the next 55 minutes or so. So with this webinar, it is being recorded. So if you miss a bit, you can watch it back later online. For those of you that are watching it online at the moment, welcome. If you notice my head moving about, bobbling, it's because I'm using dual screens and I'm bouncing between my information and what I'm going to be showing you today. Now, we're using, for those that are live, we are using Zoom as our platform for delivering this webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the Digital Solutions Program, which is an Australian government initiative on behalf of Business Station. Business Station is who I work for. I'm one of the advisors based in Queensland. And I've been using Facebook since 2008 to help businesses grow their online profile. And sometimes we do that through ads. So if you have a question at any point in time during the Zoom, if you go down to the bottom of your Zoom bar, you're going to find the chat button, or you can use the question and answer button. So with the chat button, you can also shortcut by pressing and holding Alt and H. That will open up the chat function. So if you have a question at any point in time, put it into the chat. I'll be monitoring it and answering them as I go. So let's get it started. I'm going to share a screen and show you the exciting world of Facebook ads. Okay, so straight up in front of us here, we have Facebook. This is probably what most of you see when you go into it. I've loaded up a Facebook page, just a fake one that I created for the purposes of using this sort of training. And for most of you, what you'd be familiar with doing for your businesses is using the Boost Post button. So if I click on that, it's going to take us into this screen. Through the screen, we have a few options. And if you've ever done any sort of paid advertising, this is probably familiar. The first option you have is audience, who you want to target with your ad. Sometimes as well, you have the option here to get call to actions like send messages and phone call. You can turn that button on and off. But otherwise, you'll see this. So by default, it'll choose a audience that's sort of based on your local area, but you also have the option to choose people in your local area. Boosting is one of the simplest ways of reaching your customers, but definitely the less effective. And I'll explain why that is. But for now, if we use something like a custom audience, it gives us this audience detail, and you end up in this screen. So you can target genders, different age range, different locations, which I'll be going in more detail. And it's got options for detailed targeting, including picking people based on education levels, whether they have kids, interests, what they're interested in, behaviors, like what type of mobile device they're using, and various other categories, which for some reason isn't loading. And each time we change the audience, our potential reach is going to change down the bottom here. This is important. So if we choose Missing Patrol, random selection, it's going to say that there's 2,700 people who are interested in missing patrols in my area. So I'm going to go into the audience in more detail because it's very important, but just not in the system. Down here as well, we've got the options for our budget, a duration, how long it goes for, and how much we're willing to spend. As you can see here, the minimum cost is $1.39. We can't go any lower than that because it says it needs to be at least $1.39. So for less than $2, and let's just set $2 for a nice even number, we'll reach between 167 and 482 people per day. That can be very, very valuable as long as you're hitting the right 167 people. If you can hit the exact audience with the right visual for $2 and get 167 people interested, that'd be very, very valuable. Very difficult. You'd have to really fine-tune that audience down and have a product or service so great that every single one of those 167 people want it. But even if you spend $10, go $10 and let's say 7 days. Every single day will reach 119 to 344 people. And you'll see that you have this variation, and it's based on an estimate. The number of people online, it fluctuates day to day. On the weekends, you generally have more people online than you do during the weekday. But we take that as an average, and for $10, you can reach 119 people, assuming you're reaching different people. For $10, you can reach about 700 to 1,000 people at the end of the week, and all for $10. So if you can hit the right people, that can be very valuable, very, very fast. Now, down the bottom, there are options for things like pixels, placements, and your billing settings. Very, very simple. There's not a lot of options. This is boosting, and it's not something that I generally recommend people use. Just noticed that I've got a second panelist has joined and they've dropped out. There must have been some sort of error there. Not sure what happened there, but we'll just keep on going. Let me even get my screen back online. Little error of Zoom. It always happens after a public holiday. Okay, so screen's back up. Okay, so boosting is the simplest way to do it, and it's definitely the least effective. Now, the more effective way is to use Ads Manager. And I'll show you how to get into that. On the left-hand side here, you'll have a few options, including Ads Manager and Ads Center. What you want to do is you want to go into Ads Manager. Now, if you don't have an Ads Manager immediately available to you through that left-hand option, type in facebook.com and type in Ads Manager. Just like that, and it'll take you through to your Ads Manager. Alternatively, from your Facebook page here, you can come down on the left-hand side, find the right one, click on Business Apps. Nope, sorry, not Business Apps. It's different on every page. On my one, it's only immediately available there. Let me just jump into a real-world page real quick. Let's Ad Center at the very top here. You can click on that. It'll take you into your basic generic setup. And from there, you can click on Create Ads, which will take you into Ads Manager, where you have the option of automating ads, choosing ad types, or boosting. I generally recommend though you go into your Business Manager and into your Ads Manager. And I'll show you why. So we're going to look at creating our first ad. It's going to first of all ask us for an objective. What do we want to achieve with this ad? Brand awareness, reach, traffic, engagement, installation of our apps, video views, lead generation, messages, conversions, catalog sales, and store traffic. Depending on what business we're in, different ones here might be more useful than others. I've always found lead generation is a very powerful one because you're going to directly get messages from people who are interested in your product or your service. This one does suit service-based businesses generally better, unless it's a big ticket item product where you have a sales team. If you have an online store, any of these three can be useful. Store traffic is good just for getting people through to your website. Sales, conversions, actually purchasing, and there's different benefits to each. Something like a conversion or catalog sales campaign is useful for selling particular items. Store traffic is useful for getting people visiting your website and then looking around for something that's specific for them that they're interested in. If you look at this on a big scale, if you're shopping on an e-commerce store and you see an ad, if the product isn't something you're interested in, you're not going to click on that ad for that product. But if you see an ad that's for a store with a lot of variety of different items and you click on it, there's probably a product there you might be interested in purchasing. So weighing out what type of campaign objective you choose is going to depend on what you're trying to do and what type of business you're running. For the purpose of this example, I'm going to use, let's go with lead generation today. So first of all, we've got an option for naming our campaign. I'm just going to call it test because I'm very excited today. As you can see, it's loaded into our test campaign. Special ad categories are going to vary depending on what type of campaign it is. There's a couple of particular industries, like if you're doing something credit card offers, you have to choose these special categories. Real estate listings, everything's pretty self-explanatory there. We've chosen what our option is. We want lead generation. We can put a campaign spending limit in here straight away if we want to. Taking note that what we have here is we have the campaign at the very top, and then we have our audiences, and then we have our actual ads. So what I can do is I can create multiple ads to go under and multiple audiences underneath the one campaign. And this can be useful for if we're doing A/B testing, which we'll come back to in a minute. But we have the buying type, and this is going to vary depending on what objective you choose. So in this case, we're just going for options, so we're competing for that best spot on our the feed for when our customers come onto our wall. So what I mean by that is if I click on Facebook and I scroll down, generally the very second post is always going to be some sort of ad, in this case for whatever this is. The first one is generally a page that I've liked or connected with, something I'm interested in. So in this case, this one's not a very effective ad because I've looked at it and I have absolutely no idea what it is. The text is too small and I'm not going to bother actually reading the copy that he has up here. If we keep going through this, we're going to find another ad. This one, again, it hasn't been very clearly well targeted. And keep going to scroll, see if we can find another ad. There we go, Whiskey Loot. Something I might be interested in, cool little product for advent calendar. Has been very well targeted towards me because I like whiskey. So if we click on this ad and we click on why am I seeing this ad, it's going to give us data on how they decided to choose me. So I'm trying to reach people 18 and older and who live in Australia. So, and they use the list. Not entirely sure what data they got or where they got it from, but that's how they're trying to target me. They have my email address. There we go. So maybe I've done something with them in the past. So if we go back into our ads manager and keep coming through this, auction means that we're competing for that top spot, the best position on the Facebook feed. Down here, we have the A/B testing. This is where we can test two different sort of metrics and define which one is the best. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this, turn this on to actually do the duplicate testing, but we'll use it in this case. So we go into our next section. And the very first thing is our forms. And I'm just going to pick a different page randomly. So first of all, the very first time is you can't run lead ads until you accept the terms of service. So we've got to view those service terms and what they mean and what they are. If you haven't read this before, I recommend doing it before you agree to it so you know what you're agreeing to. So we've got three options for setting up our lead method. The first one is instant form. They fill out a form and then we get that form and we go through the information. We've got the option for automated chat. So we can use the chatbot function where they go through a series of prompts. Depending on your audience, they're either going to like this or absolutely hate it. And the final option is we have calls. Simply phone me. Now, I want to use a combination of these two. I want to use the forms and I want to use the calls. The reason being is that I don't want people phoning me after hours, but I still want to be able to connect with those people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up two ads using one lead method each. So I'm going to quickly duplicate this. And we now have two sets of ads. So this first one I'm going to call forms. And the second one here I'm going to call calls. So just so we can differentiate between the two. So we'll set this one to forms. We'll set this one to calls. So down here, we're going to go down to our budget. Now, if we change it from our daily budget to a lifetime budget, we're going to get a new option. And I'm going to keep it at $50 for 1 month, from 5th to the 5th. For those watching online, this was recorded on the 5th. I'm going to come back to the audience in a moment because I want to come down here and here on the ad scheduling, I want to change it from running all the time to only running on a set schedule. Because we're using this alongside our call form, we want to use this a bit differently. So we want this to only be used during the nighttime. So our form ad is only going to be on during the nighttime, and our call ad, using our lifetime budget, same amount, $50. We're going to edit it, run it on schedule, and it's only going to run during the day. It didn't work, so it manually select it. Okay, so our form is going to run an opposite schedule to our call schedule. So that's how we're going to set up our two different ads. And because we've got two campaigns here of $50 each, $50 for the forms and $50 for the calls, our budget is going to be $100. But we can always come into the top part of our campaign and set this to be limited. So we can say we want to limit it to a maximum of $75. So between these two campaigns, they'll spend a maximum of $75 and not $1 more. So the first one to spend it all wins. Okay, so our audience. This is the real power. This is the key bit that I keep coming back to. And we can use saved audiences, audiences we've used in the past. Or we can create our own by creating a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new audience. I'm going to start by choosing our location. So I'm in the nice and regional city of Rockhampton. So I've selected Rockhampton there and I've got a mile radius. Now it's in miles because Americans don't know how to count lots of 100. So we can't have metric. But I believe 10 miles is around about 26K, give or take. Forgive me if I'm not very good at math. And for some of us, this might be a good radius, but for others, this might be a little bit too wide. What if we just want to target a neighborhood? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we've got a suburb here called Bersica. I'm going to take my pin icon, and I'm going to drop this pin. I now have the option to decrease my 10-mile radius from 10 miles down to 1. So about 2.6K. Gives me a localized suburb that I can target. This can be very useful if you're trying to target particular areas or you're very localized based business. So this is one of those first steps towards targeting the right people with your campaign. If you're a local coffee shop, your customers are probably going to come from a much smaller radius than if you're the best bakery in Australia. And if you're the best bakery in Australia, you might want to target audiences on the road towards your city as opposed to just in your local area. So understanding who your customers are is one of those very first steps towards targeting the right people. And it could be that you have a very, very popular cafe in your local area, but you're trying to target people in a much wider area in your region. And you can do that. But let's say we're trying to target people traveling towards Rocky. We could always drop a pin on a little town outside of Rockhampton that we know that people fill up at, and hopefully capture someone there with the ad along the road. So the more you can pinpoint down and target your audience, the more effective your ad is generally going to be. And each time I make a change here to who I'm targeting, if I drop a pin, look what happens to my potential reach over this side when I drop it on Brisbane. As you can see, it's now gone up to 1.4 million people as my potential reach. So you can actually use a lot of these sort of metrics to work out who's in the area and would be potentially interested in your product or your service. So let's go with the example we're trying to sell caravans. We're probably targeting an audience that's going to be, we're going to go with sort of 45 plus to 65. As you can see, our audience size is now 526 people, 500. So it's pretty accurate what they're saying. What we're going to do is we're going to target both genders, and we're going to go into detailed targeting. So if we look at the caravan example, we're going to start working out who our potential audience might be. It's probably going to be a couple that are married, first of all. That's one of those ones that we can target. And there's lots of things that we can target here, education levels. Can't target financial information anymore, unfortunately. But there's things like parents. You can target parents with newborns, toddlers, etc. How does Facebook know if I have a kid? I think every single mum is guilty of putting up a picture of their kid on Facebook. You can target people based on different industries. And you can also target them based on interest. So if we're looking for selling caravans, we're probably looking to target a retired couple or someone looking at retiring. So I'm just typing the word retire, and it's giving me a few different options. So there's ones here that we wouldn't want to do, like retirement home. They're probably not going to be searching that. But if they're looking to retire, it might be showing interest in pages relating to retirement, and we can target that. We've got a question from the audience that says, should we be concerned that Facebook is saying leads is 0? No, you shouldn't be too concerned with that. It's only an indication. In this case, they're probably saying that's going to be 0 because our budget is too low. If we come up and change that, or even reduce our time frame, it's probably going to adjust. Sometimes I do find this setting here can be a little bit buggy. But I've run these sort of campaigns actually targeting audiences like this before and got 20, 30 leads for less dollars spent. So I wouldn't be too concerned. It's just an indication. And the leads one doesn't tend to be a very good indication either, just for reference. Could entirely be because of the age of people that we have chosen. So if we reduce this down and go to 35, it hasn't changed. But we know that we're probably not going to sell many caravans to 35-year-olds, especially when we start looking at our visual imagery, which I will be coming up to shortly. So what we've done is we've determined audience is probably going to be married and looking at retirement, but there are definitely pages on Facebook around caravans. So what I'm going to use the narrow audience function. And I'm just going to type in caravans, and I'm just going to hover over these and find the one that is most suited towards what I'm targeting. So something like caravans, travelers, or pages related to traveling in caravan are probably going to be my key market. At this stage, though, they might have already brought their caravan, so we might be looking at a spell on it. Mistake. We might just be looking at targeting just people who showed interest in pages like caravan, get rid of the travelers one. And again, it keeps changing our audience and updating as we go. So we're defining that as our key metric, and they've got to have one or the other of these two. So this is an or clause. Now, potential reach of 2,000 might be a little bit low, but our audience area is a little bit low as well. Let's try increasing this to all of Queensland. And we now have 5,400 people. So we have a very, very defined audience. I'm going to get rid of the retirement one. There we go, 4,200 people. So they're going to be married and interested in caravans. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go to the next step, which is generally connections. So you can choose people who currently like your page. So this is useful for retargeting, for people who've gone on there, get them back on there looking again. You can also exclude people who currently like your page. So if you're doing a campaign to get interest back onto your page, this is a useful thing to target. As you can see, there are so many options here, so many different combinations of things that you can do. But the key thing is always just defining that audience. If you can get your audience right and you can find one that works, you can get very good results for very little money. And you really just want to very much define exactly who they are. When you have an audience that works as well, make sure that you save that audience as a custom audience. Give it a name so you can come back to it again and again and use it. So come down here, save the audience, and give it something that you notice. Caravan interest, and that's our target audience. We can come back and we can use that again and again, whether it's here on Ads Manager or if you're just doing a quick boost. Placements. So deciding where we're actually going to be sending our ads. So there's generally 4 options: Messenger, Instagram, Audience, and Facebook. So if we just look at Facebook in this case, I'm going to turn off Instagram for now. You'll see that we're going to newsfeed, marketplace, video feeds, stories, in-stream videos. And each time you hover over it, it will give you a little example to the side of what it's going to look like, and also the best format. Generally find with most things, square is the way to go, whether it's a video or a photo. In articles, so news articles, that sorts of thing, define this down to exactly who your audience is going to be. So we know that it's a generally older group, so they might just be on Facebook, so we might just target the news feed and that's it. But pick out what's going to work best for you based on what you know about your customers and your existing audience. The final step is to actually design what our ad's going to look like. As you can see, it's asking for an Instagram account and a form and a budget. So it's saying that a campaign spend limit is too low, probably for the length that we're running this for. And we know that fixing those things. So we don't have an Instagram account for this page, so we're not going to use that. So down here in our placements, we'd have to turn off Instagram. Our next step is it's asking you for a form. We'll come back to that in a minute. But down the bottom here, we've got the options for creating ads. So we can use existing posts. So something that's already been posted to our page, we can use it as an ad, or we can create an ad. We can use an image or video or carousel of images that scroll along. Something like this. We can click through and scroll through. This is where you select the most appropriate image. So if we use our caravan again as an example, we want to make sure that we have a very clear and very defined audience with that caravan user. So in this case, we're targeting people who are married and a particular demographic. So we want to get a picture of a married couple standing in front of the caravan. And then come up with some wording that is very relatable and very connectable to that audience. Something that once they see the picture, they'll relate to and then stop to read what the text is. So we really want to think about what we're going to do there. So we're going to have a picture of a retired couple and go, caravan copy, let me think. Go something along the lines of, ready to enjoy your retirement with plenty of space so that you stay married. Have the space on the road that you'd have in your home. This caravan is the perfect caravan for married couples. Something along those lines, something that they can connect with and relate with based on how we're targeting them. So we want to make sure that we very much define who our audience is, have the right visuals and have the right copy all the way through creating our ad. So this is where we put in that copy. As you can see, as we've updated it, our copy has been fed into this section here, and this is where our pictures would go. Because we're using the form set, if you remember at the very start, we set up two, one being forms, one being calls. We have to create a form. So our form works like this. We have the form name at the top, and this can be essentially anything you want it to be. It's just for your reference. And then we have our form type. Do we want more volume, really easy and simple fill out on a mobile device, or do we want high intent, give them a chance to add a review, step, confirm the information. Again, depending on your business, one of these is going to be the better one for you. So it starts with intro, where you can use a different picture if you want. You have a headline text and you put a paragraph. So like, fill out this, our team are away at the moment, fill out this form and we'll get in touch with you soon. Then we can have the questions. So fill out this based on the information you need to know. So for instance, a phone number for your customer, and you could have a custom question, something like a multiple choice or a short answer. Short answer could be something along the lines of what type of caravan are you interested in? Are you looking to buy now? Multiple choice work because you can have, are you interested in a 6 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot caravan, etc. And then there's a privacy step where you've got to have a link to your privacy policy. So this is where you're going to have something on your website already for privacy and drop that in there. You have your link text. You can add a custom disclaimer if you like. And then the final step is putting in the completion. That will then publish and create a new form for you. So once you create your form, then your customers will start answering your ad if it's effective, and you'll start getting information, basically lists of people that your sales team or yourself can call every single morning that have put in messages over the night. Keep in mind that if a customer puts in a message at 2 a.m. in the morning, they probably wouldn't appreciate a phone call at 9 a.m. in the morning. So just be aware of the time that forms come in. You might be getting someone who's on a night shift or up late working or some other things going on in their lives. So call at an appropriate time. If we're going to use the calls function, our setup here is essentially exactly the same and who we target. As you can see at the moment, I haven't actually selected the audience, so it's just targeting all of Australia. And for our budget, it reckons we're going to get 10-ish calls. Down here, though, in our test section, the big step is instead of having a form, we enter in a phone number that our customers can then ring. Once that's done, Facebook will then go into a review mode. They're going to review your ad and basically give you an idea of whether it's approved or not. And if they reject your ad, they're generally going to, give you a reason for the rejection, which can be very broad sometimes, and tell you to read through their massively long document on everything that is and isn't allowed on Facebook with no real clear indication of what you've done wrong. So this is a little bit of trial and error, but generally there's certain things that Facebook doesn't like. And sometimes it can be a little bit bizarre. I've had ads rejected because we used the lowercase f in the word Facebook. But more often than not, it's going to be around making claims and anything that's body image related. So just be careful of who you potentially choose to model your image and some of the words that you use. Like all advertising, you've got to back it up with some sort of proof. And if you have a very new Facebook account, Facebook doesn't give you a lot of sort of support in that regard. But once you run a couple $100 worth of ads through, they'll be more than willing to support you on how to do your ads better, ideally using bigger budgets. But you don't need that audience targeting. You can see there that very clearly you can target customers using very few dollars as long as you really pinpoint them down to exactly who you want. Generally, the smaller the audience size, the better, unless you've got a very broad product and a big budget that you're willing to send out to everyone. But I'd rather spend $1.39 on a very small audience that I can pinpoint than spend $1,039 on a broad audience who I'm just trying to send an ad out to. So really understanding exactly who the right people are for your market is always the first step to advertising. You want to have a very clear audience profile and then design visuals that are going to work with those audiences. If you're trying to target younger people, you need to have visuals that represent a younger audience. If you're trying to target retired demographic, you're looking for someone with a little bit of grey in their beard, or even white for that matter. Different audiences are going to respond to ads differently, and where you place your ads is going to change how your customers respond to it as well. Again, if you're trying to target a younger audience, you want to be using the Instagram function as well. So once you run an ad, the final step is really just to understand the insights, how your ad actually performed. And this will be broken up into these categories here. So what we might do is, I'm just going to stop my share for just one moment. For those of you that have come on a little bit later, if you have a question, just drop it into the chat below or use the question and answer function. And if you've missed something, you can jump into the link later and watch this back. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to check out a campaign that I've run recently for a local business. I'm just going to choose the appropriate one that I do know that I have permission to use, that has some sort of data on it that I can show you. Okay, this one looks appropriate. Just bear with me while I get this live for 1 moment. Okay, just going to share my screen again. Okay, so back onto my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see it. Now I do see that someone has mentioned that they had some trouble getting into this meeting today. Do feel free to send me some more details about that so we can better fine tune how we do this. So this was a campaign that was run. There was a series of campaigns here, spending $16.67 each, and it was a recall ad, and it reached a total of 2,684 people for a total of $31.03 spent, with a cost of per result of 11 cents. So pretty good sort of data. Over the side for the $31 spent, it looks like we had some videos going. We got 35 clicks off it and 516 3-second video plays. So for 35 click-throughs for $31 spent, that's pretty good result. That's what I want to be seeing. Now, if we come in here, we can see a variety of different settings. So in this case, it was the link clicks. So I used the performance columns, and the cost per click was 89 cents. I know personally that's a very, very good result out of ad set. And it was probably because the audience was very well defined. Using a video one, let's have a look at video engagement. So out of the total 3,000-ish plays that we got, 297 watched it all the way through, and backtrack from there. So pretty good results that, roughly 1,000, 2,000-ish people actually watched it at least to 50%. So this sort of data just gives us indication of which ads were effective. And as you can see, we did have 3 different ads types running. The click-throughs is probably the most important one for me. So I'm going to go back to that one and see which ad was the most effective. And as you can see, for around about 1,000 people reached, we got 10 clicks. So 1% engagement rate. But there's no clear winner here in terms of the actual ad campaign. But if we've seen one there where it had 1 link click and then the next one had 200 link clicks, the ad with the 200 link clicks was the more effective one to be running. So this information here for the insights really just gives you a good indication of which ads are the most effective for your business. And whenever we're running ads, we don't just run one, we run anywhere up to 3, 5, 10 ads, depending on how many different creatives we've got. And we test each of them out and see which one are the most effective. Eventually, if you run enough ads, you'll work out an audience that always works or nearly always works with a type of ad that nearly always works. A lot of marketing is about testing and trying. It's based on assumptions until you test it. So I always caution people that if you're sort of new to business and running ads for the first time, and you're working with a marketing company or person, if they come to you and say they know exactly how to do it, either they're absolutely lying to you or they have an incredible amount of experience, but they're working for you and your competition. So that's normally the warning I give you. Marketing is about testing and trying, which is why the A/B testing is so important. And understanding the different insights that you have here is also very important. These other columns here can be useful depending on what sort of ad you're running. So if you're getting app engagement, they'll show you things like installs. Messaging will show you, how many sort of leads you got through from your ad. Delivery will just give you sort of costing and impressions and overall data. So if you're spending the same dollars and one of the ads is reaching more people, then that's the more effective one to run. At this point in time, do we have any questions from our audience around how to create these ads, how to get into Ads Manager, why boosting is the least effective way to do it, how these sort of settings work? Is there any questions there? If you do have a question, just make sure you jump into the chat below on your Zoom. If you're watching this later online, do feel free just to send out a message, get in touch with me, and I'll do my best to answer it. You can access me through the Business Station Digital Solutions portal, which I'll bring up momentarily. The probably the biggest takeaway that you want in leaving this webinar is to keep in mind that if you have a very clear and defined audience, you know exactly who your customer is and which platforms, which spaces they're on, you can reach them very effectively for very few dollars spent. So we've got a question here, and it's, you know, can you link your Facebook and your Instagram pages if you open them separately if they have the same name? Yeah, so you can link your Instagram and your Facebook pages. You need to do that if you're going to be doing some sort of advertising that's cross-platform. And how to do it, I will share a screen. So just using this real world page, we want to go into the page where we have administrator access. We're going to come down to settings on the left-hand side on our Facebook page. And we want to come down until we see Instagram. And should be right here. There we go, Instagram. And from there, it will give you the options to link your Instagram and also disconnect it. You can also do this through your Instagram using the settings function, which is the 3 bars on the top right. So that's how you do that one. Reasonably simple to do once you get into it. You're just going to make sure that you do have admin access. And just talking briefly on admin access, I always recommend that you never ever let anyone be an admin on your page unless they're owner of the business or someone that you completely trust. Just because the admin can take full and complete total control of your Facebook page. So often the highest level should ever let anyone be is an editor. If you're hiring an external marketing company, an editor is a high enough level. You do not want to give administration rights, especially to someone you haven't met, because that's how pages get hacked. So accessing me, you can access me through the Business Station website and get in touch if you call our digital solutions hotline. Alternatively, my email is just liam.f for Fahey @businessstation.com.au, and yes, there is 3 S's in there. I'm more than happy if you send me through a message if you got a question and watching this later online. Alternatively to that, if you've found a lot of benefit from this and you're not already part of our digital solutions program, make sure you go onto businessstation.com.au, program digital solutions, and sign up, because for $44 you can get 7 hours of mentorship, which is 3 hours one-to-one and 4 hours structured learning for our webinars and workshops on a wide variety of topics with one of our highly qualified experts, one of those that you can be talking to. Okay, so we have another question. So you, going back to the Instagram, connecting to Facebook, you did it through Insta, that takes you to your personal Facebook page. It could be, without looking at it directly, I'd say that the Instagram page might be set up as a personal Instagram page as opposed to a business page. So you're just going to want to make sure that you select a professional account first. Otherwise, try connecting it from the Facebook side first. Is there any other questions out there from our audience today? While I'm on it, if you want to access the digital solutions sign up, you can use this QR code here. So as long as my head's not in the way, you can pull out your phone and scan that now. Always the option. So today that has been our webinar on reaching your customers through Facebook ads. As you can see, there's a huge amount of different options there. You can target people in different genders, demographics, interests, behaviors. You can target people traveling. You can target people with newborns. One of my all-time favorite ones was a campaign we ran for a florist for my marketing business. And we targeted men who had the relationship status complicated. It was a very, very effective advert that we ran. And we have a question. So for Jasmine, who came a little bit late, we don't have a live playback available to you here. What you can do is you will receive a link in your email from Business Station once this has been uploaded to our server. From there, you can click on that link and watch back this this video. So you can watch it from the start if you came in late. And I do apologize that some people did have difficulty getting into the session. We're still fine-tuning this process and trying to make it easier for people attending our webinars. Okay, well, that's going to finish up this official part of our webinar. I'm going to stay online briefly if anyone else does have any more questions, which I can see are coming through. So you need to target hospitality and wineries and restaurants. Any tips? Great one. So you can actually target people who work in the hospitality industry. If you're trying to target various hospitality businesses, like the actual owners, what you can do is you can create an and or. The and being, okay, people who work in a particular industry, and the second one being small business owners. So people who actually list themselves as the owner or admin on the Facebook page. If you do that, you'll get in touch with the owner. Alternatively, you could target the manager if you're looking at trying to get into bigger groups. So there's a few different ways you can target it. It's just a matter of going through and working on what options work for you best and designing a campaign that works for that market. Always recommend anytime you're creating ads, you always start with who your audience is and then work your way backwards. We know who our audience is. What's the visual that we're going to send to them? Once we know the visual, then we can work on, budgets, placements, dollars, everything else that comes into it, and how we're actually going to target them with our Facebook ad. And if you take this information here and bring it across to essentially any other ad platform, you'll find that it's very similar in how it works. Okay, I'm going to close off the live recording, but if anyone has any questions, do let me know. I will stay online to answer them for a few more minutes. Thank you for attending. How to reach your customers through Facebook ads.